The upcoming few weeks are going to be big for the Oakland Raiders, even before training camp actually begins. There are a few questions that need to be answered, and while some may not actually offer us that answer until close to, after the start of camp, these are things looming in the heads of the fan base. We're going to take a look at 4 big question marks currently lingering over the Raiders, as well as what the possible outcomes could be. A few of them are still completely up in the air, but we'll get as in-depth with them as possible. There's no better place to start than with the red-hot topic of Martavis Bryant and discipline from the NFL potentially on the horizon. What will the outcome be of Martavis Bryant's potential suspension after Michael Gehlken of the Las Vegas Review-Journal dropped the hammer that the Raiders fear potential discipline from the league pertaining to the NFL's substance abuse policy for Bryant? It left fans incredibly uneasy. Bryant has already been suspended for an entire due to repeated violations of the policy, so if this does indeed have something to do with that, it could very well end his NFL career. There's plenty of buzz and excitement surrounding the Raiders' acquisition of Bryant, but it may be all for nothing if this situation doesn't pan out in favor of the former Pittsburgh Steelers wideout. When will Khalil Mack and the Raiders come to terms on his contract extension? Here's a fun one. While this is obviously the biggest question of the bunch, the reason I didn't mention it first is due to the fact that it seems to be a matter of when, not if, the two sides get a deal done. The sooner the better, of course, as getting Mack on the field to work with his new teammates and learn a new defense is important. But as long as he's out there for training camp, I'm not overly concerned. I expect the deal to get done sometime before camp, but that's really just an educated guess based on rumblings and reports. Mack certainly will want to get out there, and the Raiders need him on the field, so it's time to sit down and hammer out a deal which pays the man what he deserves. How will a few key players return from the off-season after seemingly small injuries? Names like Garion Conley, Obi Melifonwu, Eddie Vanderdoes, and Marcus Gilchrist, among others, sat out portions of OTAs and minicamp due to injuries. Aside from Vanderdoes, who's currently working his way back from a torn ACL, the other injuries seem minor. The Oakland Raiders have completed off-season practices, OTAs and minicamp, and are gearing up for John Gruden's first back on the sidelines. Want the latest news sent straight to your inbox? Sign up for our free Raiders newsletter now. That doesn't change the fact that it's resulted in plenty of concern from fans, specifically about Conley and Melifonwu, who missed the bulk of 2017 due to injuries. On the surface, it doesn't seem that there's much to be concerned about, but if any of these names wind up missing the start of training camp, we could be looking at a massive headache from the word go. Will the Raiders rely too heavily on veterans when naming starters? This one won't get answered this early on, but it's worth talking about. The team brought in plenty of veteran players with the hopes that they could either win starting jobs, be solid reserves, or just teach the younger guys. One key concern I have personally, though, is that Gruden and company could opt to roll out more veterans than they realistically should, simply based on experience and the fact that they have a previous relationship with coordinators. Specifically, on the defensive side of the ball, you'd be hard-pressed to convince me that veteran Leon Hall is a better all-around player right now than Darryl Worley, the two players competing for the number 3 cornerback job. But defensive coordinator Paul Guenther knows Hall well and may trust him more than Worley at this point. It's a concern, but in the end, I think this comes down to coaches simply knowing who the best players across the board are. It's hard to argue with on-field production, and the top talent will emerge when training camp and the preseason begin.